Okay, Nellie, thank you. Did you all- Okay, we heard you. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are recording this meeting. So if you're going to talk about anybody, just be aware that, say your name so they'll know who's saying it. Good evening. Good evening. No. Good evening. Baruchim habaim. Ahlan wisahalem. Yes?
Ahlan wa sahlan.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to the ninth in our annual Sisterhood Summer Lecture Series. This is our ninth one. In our series, we explore Jewish history and Jewish life in other countries. So far, we visited South Africa, Persia, Cuba, Ireland, Hungary, Romania, Free-State Israel, and Bukharan. Tonight, we spend an evening in Cairo. And for those of you who've been following us, since we started Zoom, in our case in June of 2020, this is Sisterhood's 28th Zoom program, 28th and counting. And Jamie tells me that in the fall, they've all been recorded. In the fall, they will all be available for you on the Sisterhood site on the Temple Israel website. If you'd like to catch anything you missed, most of them are short. Most of them are like 30 minutes, 40 minutes the most. To binge watch would probably take you about 13 hours if you all have 13 hours. But anyway, as everybody knows, everybody is welcome to Sisterhood program. Tonight we spend an evening in Cairo. Now, many people think Jewish life in Egypt ended with the Exodus. We left and that was it. Actually, we came back, and there has been a continuous Jewish presence in Egypt since the first temple period, which is about the year 1000 BCE. In 1948, when the state of Israel was born, the Jewish population of Egypt was 75,000. The prophet Jeremiah, who was active in the first temple period, was taken to Egypt against his will. When Babylon conquered Judah in the year 586 BCE, they took most of the Jewish elite with them to Babylon. Jeremiah didn't want to leave, but he was forcibly taken to Egypt, and from that point on, we have no idea what happened to him. The next big wave of Jewish immigration to Egypt came when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt. One of Alexander's successors, Ptolemy II, settled many of these Jews on Elephantine Island in the Nile. And I just want to share the screen with you and show you some pictures of this. Give me 1 second. Okay, Jamie, I'm having a little bit of a problem. No, I'm seeing the next slide. That's a problem. Excuse me. Anyway, the slide you see here is what the Jews of Elephantine Island built their own temple. The Jews of Babylon were waiting to return. Why should I see this?
They see that. You see the next.
Oh, okay, thank you, sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, so the Jews of Babylon were waiting to come back to build their own temple, to rebuild the temple. The Jews of Elephantine Island didn't wait. And you see on the screen what we believe their temple looked like. It existed at the time of the Babylonian exile, and it was modeled after the first temple. And by the way, those people who think the first temple was like the Sistine Chapel or the Vatican, it was very small. And the reason it was small is nobody went inside except the high priest once a year. Everything happened in the courtyard. So you didn't need a big building. Now, while the Elephantine Island Temple is gone, we did find a number of documents from that period, and we were surprised to learn that in that period, women were empowered to divorce their husbands. Women also owned property on their own and had a lot of rights that the women in Judah did not have. One more time. Another well-known Jewish resident of Egypt was the 12th century scholar, philosopher, and actually as a Jew, doctor, Maimonides. This was a golden age for science, for literature, for philosophy, and there was cultural sharing, a great deal of cultural sharing between the Muslim and Jewish literary communities and scholarly communities. Maimonides wrote his most famous works in Egypt. Some were original, some were borrowed from the Muslim scholars and philosophers, and I hate to disappoint anybody, but his 13 principles of faith were copied directly from the renowned and influential Muslim scholar Ibn Rushd. Sorry. Okay. Now let's get on to the 20th century. Our special guest, Nellie Mizrahi, is going to tell us the story of 20th century Egyptian Jewry through the lens of her own family's experience. Now, history usually gives us dates and places, but to really understand history, you have to hear it from somebody who can say, this is what happened to me. And now Sisterhood of Temple Israel of Great Neck very proudly presents a conversation with Nellie Mizrahi. And what's going to happen is I'm going to ask Nellie a question and she's going to answer based on her family history. And we have slides and all that. By the way, Nellie spent hours working on this. And and her family, whom she recruited or cajoled or forced or whatever, spent hours collecting a lot of the pictures that you're about to see. So this was truly a family project. Okay. The opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 and its many economic opportunities brought an upsurge in Jewish immigration to Egypt. Many Jews came from the Ottoman Empire, Italy, and Greece, and settled in the large cities of Egypt, and they prospered. Nellie, where did your family come from originally? Where did they settle, and what were their occupations?
We lived in Cairo. My grandparents from my maternal side, they came, Marco Daniel, her father, came from Turkey, and her mother, Fortuna, came from Italy. The story is that they were supposed to come and develop a business somehow, but they gambled their money on the ship. And on my father's side, he was from Syria. And there is a story, they say there is a rabbi by the name of Haber, Mishpachat Haber. We are Mishpachat Haber. I don't know if it's true. He was from Alexandria. My mother came from a big family of 5 daughters and 2 sons. Her older brother was Marco Daniel. He was a CPA and he was very well-to-do. They lived very well at home with the family, with the grandparents. You don't hear me.
We'll want to hear you.
Okay,
I'm
so
gonna do this.
It has to be about maybe 6 inches from your mouth.
Does this look good?
that's fine.
Is that
You hear
better?
me?
Yeah.
I guess I have to, maybe it's too much.
No, that's too much.
Okay. Is it better? Is that better? Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm
That's
so sorry,
okay.
but everyone wants to
Yeah.
hear you.
6 inches from your mouth.
Try it again. My parents lived in Cairo. Yes, okay. So my uncle was a prominent man in Cairo. He was very philanthropic. He helped the Jewish community, and he lived in a beautiful building, 14 stories. Apparently, it was the only one of that height in Cairo. Um, and we lived on a street that was very close to the main avenue, Malika Nazli. You mentioned it. That's where they have the parade. That's where the soldiers were brought back from the airport. And at the end of our street was a very beautiful palace, Sakakini Palace. This was not a royal palace. It was someone who came and was very successful. He built this. I used to go to school and pass by this building every day, but I didn't know what it was. What else?
Well, I'm showing on the screen the outside of your apartment building with a view of the palace.
Okay.
That's what I'm showing on the screen.
We lived in a building where we were the only Jewish family. Everyone in the building liked us very much and we got along very well. We had one member of parliament, one general who sat with King Farouk, and our neighbor on the same floor. He was a retired official from the police. He had a car and a chauffeur waiting for him as part of his retirement. They were very nice to us. We were very friendly and they loved me very much because they didn't have children. They used to take me with them when they went out and they used to tell me, if anyone asks you, your name is not Nelly, you to say you are Laila Hassan Bey Hosni, because his name was Hassan Bey. Bey is like Pasha, it's a title. So they wanted me to be like their daughter. They were very nice to us. Everybody was very friendly. And what else? We went to French schools. They were non-schools. My brother went to Catholic father schools. These were the best school along with the Lycée Français. And we had a Hebrew school also. And we had an American school in the neighborhood. We spoke French at home. What else? That's it, I think.
Wait, Nellie, I want to go back to the picture of the Rotary Club.
Which picture?
The Rotary Club.
Yes.
So people can see the lifestyle. And people looking at a picture of a man in a white galabeah, a white turban, and a red sash. What is the significance of
So
that?
these are the waiters in the restaurant. They wear a long galabeah with the red turban. And my mother used to say they had a servant in the house that if they called him, they were a big family. Okay, Muhammad, can you bring such thing from the kitchen? He will take his time and they say, it's okay, you don't have to put the turban to come, just come. So this was a joke that my mother used to say. And the life in Cairo was very cosmopolitan. We had country clubs, we had all the movie theaters, Rivoli, Metro, all the movies that were showing here, we saw them in Cairo.
You mentioned the influence of the movie East of Eden with James Dean.
Yes. This was the last movie, as I remember. We left in 1957, so I think it came out 55, 56, we saw it. And soon after, the boys that were in our group, they all had the bomber jacket, the blue and the red one. Yes.
No, it shows you the influence of American culture, which is still a very strong influence. And the way you're describing it, you had a beautiful life growing up. It was very cosmopolitan.
Shall I speak about the vacations now?
Oh, yes, we're ready for that. Let me just ask oh, yes, please, actually.
Yes.
Yes,
So our summers, we spent them, you couldn't stay in Cairo, it's too hot. So we either went to Alexandria where my aunt had a big apartment and we were at the beach every day. In the evening, we went out because we strolled near the Corniche. Corniche is the Tayelet, like you say, is what do you call it in
well,
Hebrew?
it would be a
The
word
promenade, yes,
yeah.
yes. And you could sit down and have some pastry, cold things, and you listen to music, and the music was mostly European music, English, French. People played the piano, the violin, the accordion, and it was a very, very European style of life. And if we didn't go to Alexandria, we went to Abu Qir. Abu Qir is a small town, beach town, maybe 10 miles near Alexandria. That town had no roads. When we arrived by train, you take a horse and buggy to the hotel. And the hotel was on the beach. All day we were in our swimsuit, playing. In the afternoon, we slept, woke up, got dressed nicely, went to the hotel next door where there was more music and accordion playing, and the older kids danced, and the parents sat and enjoyed a nice evening. And we did this until the end of August, and then we had to go back for schools and the holidays. It was a nice, comfortable life, happy life.
Okay, Nellie, I'm showing a picture of the exterior of the department store in Cairo,
Yes,
and along with the picture of the owner.
yes.
And what did you do if you wanted to wear the latest American or West or French fashion?
Yes. So when I became 15 or 16, I was going downtown with my best friend, and we used to do window shopping. So Sicurel was one of our big department stores. We can show you the picture. We had Shemla, Gattegno. Gattegno apparently was owned by my sister-in-law's uncle. They came from Greece. So we look at the windows and we come back with ideas, and we ask the seamstress to design the dresses that we saw. By the way, Sicurel's daughter married Mendes France, the ex-president of France.
That's, you're seeing a picture of him.
Yeah, Monsieur Sicurel.
And this is the interior of Sicurel, the department store. Does it remind you of B. Altman?
Well, it's also like the French stores. What do you call them? I forgot.
Galleries.
Galerie Lafayette. Yes. Yeah.
It was a beautiful life.
Yes.
And
Until
and that's the problem in so many places. Everything is wonderful until it isn't wonderful. And this brings us to 1947. The Egyptian government passed what they called the Companies Law, mandating that 75% of the workforce of all Egyptian companies must be Egyptian citizens. At the time, only 20% of Egyptian Jews were citizens of Egypt. So Nellie, after high school, you tried to get a job. What happened?
So after I finished 3 years of high school, it's not yet the baccalaureate. I received a diploma. It's a French diploma that came from Paris, BEPC, which is, I found out the meaning in English. It's finishing like 3 years of high school. And my parents thought this was enough for a girl, and they needed me to go to work and help the family. So my father asked his best friend if he could find a job in his company. And I went, I took the test, and I was declined. I did not get the job. I was very happy because it meant I was going back to school. However, his friend told my father, your daughter had the highest score of everyone, but her name was not Fatma or Aliyah, and therefore she did not get the job. So I continued on, I went to school, and I promised I was gonna have some help by teaching young children at school. I earned some money and it went through my tuition. I This was before the war. That was the year then,
That was
56.
19,
56, the
56.
Suez Crisis.
just before that. Yes,
Yes.
actually, we're gonna discuss that in a little while. And just as Nellie said, in many countries, day-to-day Jewish life depended on the constantly changing political situation. Everything was wonderful today, tomorrow, it's not. That's the problem. On May 14, 1948, the state of Israel was born. From this point on, life became very difficult for Egyptian Jewry. The day after, emergency law was declared in Egypt by royal decree, because Egypt was still a monarchy. Egyptian citizens were forbidden to leave the country. Now, although the majority of Jews were not Egyptian citizens, the law applied specifically to Jews. Hundreds of Jews were arrested and their property confiscated. And as Nellie will tell you, whenever there was a situation involving the state of Israel, the first group to suffer as a group, to be suspect as a group, were the Jews of Egypt. No matter how many years, how many generations they'd been there, they were automatically suspect. From June through August 1948, Jewish neighborhoods were bombed and businesses were looted. 250 Jews were either killed or wounded. Nellie, I know your family was affected by this. How did this affect your family? Did your family think about leaving at this point? And did any of them leave? And what happened to those who stayed?
After 1948, the situation became a little critical. We would hear from time to time, they stabbed somebody. That I remember at the corner of the circle, Sakakini circle, they opened the stomach of a pregnant Jewish woman. I mean, this was, when I heard it, I was very young. It's bad. And they interned people. So my youngest uncle, who had 7 children, was put in prison for I don't know for how long. And when he left, he just decided to go to Israel with his children, and he established himself very well. He made a very good life for himself. Another one, after 48, my cousin also, he used to, they picked up some group. If you were part of the Jewish organizations, they knew who you were, and they came and they picked you up and put you in prison. Yes.
Every Jew was automatically suspect. Okay, let's move up a little bit. In 1952, there was a revolution in Egypt. The monarchy was overthrown, King Farouk was overthrown. And the new government nationalized all businesses and changed the curriculum in the schools to be more consistent with the nationalist Egyptian government. Okay. Nellie, you remember Cairo burning during the riots that followed. Tell us about it. How did it affect your family? And did any of your neighbors actually try to help you?
Well, 1952, that day, I was with my mother visiting a cousin of hers who used to come from Alexandria to a place outside Cairo to escape the winter. It was warm, it was a beautiful place, and we went to visit. We took the train just like going from Manhattan to Great Neck. On our way back, we went to the station, and everybody said there are no trains going to Cairo. Cairo is on fire. And we didn't know how to go back. And mommy said, don't open your mouth, because if I speak, I have an accent, they will recognize we're foreigner. But she looked, if you saw the picture, my mom looked like a Turkish woman, and she could speak Arabic very well. So she tried to find out, and we managed to come with other people by taxi somewhere not very far from where we lived. We walked, we came home, and soon the mobs were walking in the streets with baton and sticks and kill the Jews everywhere. And we were huddled behind our shutters in the bedroom with Papa and Mommy. And our building had an iron gate in the front, which was near the sidewalk. Then you have a courtyard and another iron gate. Our doorman was standing in the front. And these mobs came to him and they said, any Jews? He said, no, we don't have Jews. At that point, my father just couldn't believe it. He saved us. He saved our life. And after this, we realized that my father's business was burned that day. And we didn't know what to do. Our neighbor, who really loved us a lot, and he came into our house and he showed his checkbook to my mother and he said, Madame Rose, tell me how much you need, I'll write you a check. It's very nice. She said, thank you very much. We don't need it, but it's very nice of you to offer. And soon after this, we thought maybe it's the end. We should go close shop and go to Israel. But we debated, what are we going to do there? Papa didn't speak the language. We didn't speak the language. He didn't have a profession that you can go, you are an engineer, a doctor, whatever. He was a businessman. So it was his health was not good. He was not in good health at the end. So we decided to rebuild and we stayed. And we stayed until 1956 when another event happened.
Yes. Nellie, while you were talking, I showed the picture of your mother. And I showed the picture of your mother and the neighbors while you were talking,
Yes.
so they can see that. Now we have another, the 1956 campaign. And you notice every time something happened politically with Israel, they took it out on the Jews. And unfortunately, this is not the only place this happened. The 1956 campaign was a terrible time for Egyptian Jewry. Hundreds of Jews were arrested. They were put in prison. I'm showing the picture of Abu Zabal prison. And your cousin was in prison there from 1956 to
Yes.
56 to 57.
That's October 1956.
Yeah.
And I remember that day very well because I was in my balcony studying. It was a sunny day for an exam. I started hearing and seeing airplanes flying around. And soon after, the school closed, everything as we knew it stopped. They started to ask anybody who was French citizen, Italian or British, they gave them 2 weeks and they had to leave the country. And you had to leave without just one suitcase and you didn't sell or do anything. So my best friend left and I cried immensely. She was like a sister. Then my aunt, they had an Italian passport. And her son, who was a teenager, he was always round up. When there is any problem, he was waiting with a little bag because they came and put him to prison. So he's the one who was in this big prison that you showed the picture.
Yeah.
And
They're seeing it now.
that's a very bad prison. I didn't know that. My cousin, his youngest brother told me. And they decided to leave and travel to Italy. They went to Milan. And on the ship, when they liberated him from prison, the oldest son, he did not get to see the family until the ship left the Egyptian water territory. This is how they were.
You said they actually put him in the hole with the cargo.
He was, yes, in somewhere, but he was not able to see his family only until they left the Egyptian territory.
They're seeing a picture of the inside of a prison cell right now.
And my husband, I didn't know him then. He lived in Alexandria and he was also French citizen from his mother's side. And he was given 2 weeks to leave. But he had just graduated from medical school and he did not have his diploma. So he risked his life. He traveled by train to Cairo and went to the Ministry of Health, presented himself and said, I'm here to get my diploma. And he said, why are you here? We're going to mail it to you. He said, yes, I was visiting my aunt. He was lucky because he could pass as an Egyptian. He looked like an Egyptian and he spoke Arabic very well. So that was really on his side. And he left the country also with 20 pounds in his pocket. and sent to France. You know, he tried to find jobs, whatever. But that's what they did to people. You just leave with nothing. This was 1956. We decided when everybody was leaving, my aunt was a very good friend of my mom and other friends, we said this time we have to go. And in 1957, 2 weeks before Passover, we left. We just packed. We were allowed 1 suitcase per person, so we had these suitcases, and we closed the door. We left. Beautiful furniture, beautiful Persian carpets, vitrines that had the most gorgeous teacups with gold and crystal and silver, all kind of silver you need for this, for that. It was a whole vitrine. We called it l'argenterie. And carpets and drapes, everything. We left, we closed the door, and we said goodbye. And I asked my brother, remember the movie we saw, the show we saw, Salute to the State of France, remember? At Broadway? Remember the scene at the end where the family is leaving and the mom went back and touched the chair of the dining room? I cried. I cried because I remembered my mother and I said, how did she leave all this? So I called my brother and I asked him and he said, no, we just left. She gave the key to the neighbor and my father gave the key of his business to his best client and he was a friend. And we left. How did we do it? How did she do it? She maintained such a beautiful apartment. It went from one street to the other. Her father used to tell her, my daughter, you need a bicycle to go from the kitchen to the other end. And I tell George always about when I was young, the bathroom was at the very end and the rooms were on the other end. If I went at night there, the lights, you had the switches. So by the time I turned the switch, I was running because it was dark to get to my bedroom. So it was sad. And this show really brought it back to me. Also, when I saw Fiddler on the Roof, the Yiddish one, and you see them walking, each one with a suitcase, that brought memory also. I cried. It just brought back memories. However, it turned out to be very good for us. We traveled through Greece and we arrived in Israel at the port of Haifa. And they put us on a bus. And we didn't know where we were going. They stopped here. Some people went down, they stopped here. And then they stopped at Beersheba. Beersheba was a real desert, absolute desert. And where we were was a new development. So every time they open a new development, there are no roads, no water, no electricity. The bus stopped, our suitcase is out. Here you are, the key to your house. They were rakavot, which is like a row of houses. We call them rakavot, it's like a train, like the train, you know. So everybody got a shikun, a house, no electricity, no running water. They gave us one lamp, gas lamp, 2 stools, no chairs, 1 table like this, a bed for each other, for each person, a blanket, whatever. 2 weeks after, I think it was Pesach, maybe less. And each family decided we're going to celebrate Pesach together. So on the whole, you know, the rakevet, each one had their table in the front with the 2 stools, with the lamp. And mommy cooked a feast from 500 grams of meat. That was the ration we had. And we sang with no electricity. We sang, we laughed. I tell you, it's the most memorable Passover night in my life. We had nothing, but it was so happy. We really enjoyed it. And 9 months after, we managed to get an apartment in the same neighborhood. When they asked my mother, do you want doors and shutters? She said, how can you have an apartment without doors and shutters? Of course. And hot water, yes. But we didn't know some people who didn't want to, they didn't pay. You had to go back after and have to contract people to come. This was lucky. We had a small apartment, 56 meters square. How big is that? Like my living room, George? Yeah. Yeah. And when my kids came with me to visit, and I saw we had one bedroom and a very small bedroom with two beds and a living room, they said, all of you lived in this apartment, mommy, 5 people. They couldn't believe it because they know where they lived. Anyway, we were very happy there, and I needed to work. And all my friends were getting jobs, and some of them were getting jobs in the diamond industry. And I wasn't getting a job, and I complained to the head of the employment agency, and I spoke to her in English because I didn't know yet. Whatever English I had, this was the language. So she said, no, your father is Mr. Hebert. I know, wait, I'm going to give you a good job. And she did. She gave me a job with Herut Baam. Herut is a subsidiary of Soleil Bonnet. If anybody knows what Soleil Bonnet is, well, you know what Soleil Bonnet is. It's one of the big construction company they build all over. And Herut was the installation. We did the water and the electricity. So I was a telephone operator, but my office was my desk was in the accounting department. So I can't be busy all the time. So I asked if I can help you, And I advanced, and then soon the secretary left. They were hiring secretary. Each one comes by my office. She goes in, she works 1 week, she comes back, they don't have. So I went to the boss. I said, Mr. Schulman, I want that job. He said, Bubale, you don't know Hebrew. How are you going to do it? I said, I want to do it. By that time, I learned typing and shorthand at night. He says, okay, I'll give you 3 months. If you don't make it, you leave. I said, okay. And I took it. And for my luck, at that time, we were developing the Dimona Atomic Center. And we had the French engineer were there to help. So we did a lot of correspondence and typing in French and in English, and I was able to do it. And what I didn't know, I opened the files, I looked how it was written, I copied. And this was a big position. For me to arrive after 3 years, I was the secretary to the head Menahel Rashi Shel Herut Baam in Beersheba. It was a big job. I don't know how I got it. But I managed to really do it well until I got married. And when I went to tell my boss that day, I have to take off today, he said, why? I said, because I'm going to get married. Who are you getting married with?
Nellie,
Well, I said-
I'm showing you wedding picture.
Yeah, okay. So I said, he's an American. And what does he do? I said, he's a psychiatrist. Bubale, mishugane, lamala. Yes, mishugane, and it happened. And that's it. What else?
Okay, the next, I'm so fascinated, I'm not even looking at this. Okay, this is, by the way, this is Nellie's wedding picture. By the way, well, Nellie's too modest to say, Nellie designed her wedding dress.
Yes. Well, you know, the fashion was short dresses, I think, around that time. And I worked on the main street in Beersheba, and we had a Turkish guy that sold the best fabric. I walked there, I bought some guipure, French guipure. I designed it very simple, short dress, but you couldn't sew your own dress as a bride. So my mother's friend did it. And my veil was a Brigitte Bardot, but I didn't buy it, we rented it. That's true, everybody rented the dresses, but I couldn't find the dress I liked, that's why I made it. And this dress was worn by 5 of my cousins. and my sister. And my mother sent it to me and it's in my closet.
Everybody's looking at it.
No, no, no. We have to take out the seams.
Oh, not nice question. Who's it, Paul, is that you? Oh, Paul.
Why not? He knows about sewing.
Okay, now, oh, not nice. Now, the last question I want to ask you is, did you and your family ever return to Egypt? And what happened when you did?
We did. 1981 was what was it, the name, the accord,
Was that the peace treaty with
The-
Egypt?
what's the word? The word escapes me. There's something accord.
Oh, Camp David Accords.
The what?
The Camp David.
The Camp David
Yeah,
Accord,
Nellie,
thank
I'm
you.
showing a picture of you and your family in front of the synagogue in Cairo.
Yes, not, the synagogue is in Alexandria.
Oh, sorry, Alexandria.
Yeah.
Cross out Cairo.
Yeah, so we traveled, we had our bar mitzvah, my third son in Israel, at the Kotel, and we traveled by plane to Cairo. And we went to visit our neighborhood. And we had a driver with a minivan, and you come to this neighborhood, how many minivans they get? All the kids ran, they looked what it is. And the doorman, Musa, was standing at the front of our door as usual. And I come out and I go to him and I said, Musa, and he looks at me, Nelly, my sister Echi, Sister Rose upstairs. He hugged me. You don't see Arab hugging women. It doesn't happen. I think it was just an emotion. He hugged me. And all the little kids, and I said, my neighbors who lived in the balcony, they were on vacation. They always go to Alexandria in the summer. So we didn't see them. This picture was taken by my cousin when he went back. So the heavy lady is Luli. And I thought about it. This is one point, maybe just on the side. They used to tell my mother, this little Nelly, Laila, you're not going to marry her to a banker like you marry everybody, because the Jews were either banker or business, whatever. She's going to marry a doctor. Wow. Did I want to tell her that? And it wasn't by choice. It just happened. But you wanted to know about the dowry, no? And what?
Yes, but I just showed you a picture of the neighbor.
Correct.
Wait, I'm back to the synagogue. You want me to show your wedding picture now? Again?
It's okay. It's done.
Okay. What about the dowry?
Well, in Egypt, the girls, when they married, they had to pay a dowry to the man. And I was so much against this. I heard my uncle, who was quite comfortable, he had 3 daughters. And I hear like it was a business, because the shadchan, the matchmaker will bring somebody and they decide on a price and they want more. And I heard him, he used to talk to my mother, she was his sister, they were very close. And I was so disgusted with this, so disgusted, I didn't want it. And girls were supposed to marry at age 16, 17, 18 was too old. I didn't want that. I really wanted to go to college, actually. And of course, I couldn't go to the university, the Egyptian university like my father, because I would be with the Arabs. My ambition was to go to the American university. However, I knew I could not go there because I could not afford it. My brother went to the Egyptian university and he studied engineering and he was good. But however, I was able to do it here. I went to college when I was 40 years old, and my youngest child was first grade. I would go twice a week for 2 courses at Oldsbury, College of Old Westbury. And I finished my 4 years in 5 years. And you should see the day of graduation. I didn't want to wear my robe, and my husband said yes. He was so happy. It was like a child of his was getting a degree, not his wife. It was nice. I'm glad I did it. I wanted it and I made it.
Nellie, also, when you and your husband joined Temple, when you and your husband joined Temple
Yes,
Israel,
when we came here.
when you and your husband joined Temple Israel, your kids became B'nai Mitzvah here, and somebody else in your family became a Bat Mitzvah here.
Recently, just before the pandemic. Some of you were here, yes. And I was upset that they gave us a January date because I said it could be snowing. I have a son who's coming from Europe, a son coming from California. How are they going to do it? Well, we were lucky because soon after we were on lockdown. And I'm so happy to belong to this temple. My 4 children were bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah. And this is home, honestly.
And I'm sure we're all very happy that you belong to this temple. Before we take questions, I have one little historical footnote that I'd like to include. And those of you who know me are not going to be at all surprised. The Sinai campaign of 1956 began when Israeli paratroopers landed at strategic points in the Sinai. The first landing was at the Mitla Pass, which is a path, there are mountain ranges within the Sinai, Mount Sinai. The Mitla Pass is a low point where in which you can go from the Sinai toward the Suez Canal. The first landing of Israeli paratroopers was at the Mitla Pass, and they were carried into battle by a fleet of 16 C-47 transport planes. The co-pilot of the lead plane in this first major battle for the Mitla Pass was a woman. Her name was Yael Ram. She died, I believe in 2002. She was the lead co-pilot. You'll see a picture of the C-47 to her on the side. And when she was a reservist, she was recalled in 56. And when she graduated from flight school, she graduated second in her class. By the way, you do not see this. There are a number of websites from the Israel Air Force and the Israeli government. And when they talk about the 56 campaign, nowhere do they mention her. We got this from the Jewish Women's Archive. So now I'm going to turn the microphone over to Nellie, and we will take questions. Those of you who are joining us on Zoom, Jamie, can you see the people who are on Zoom? Okay, if you're joining us on Zoom, just raise your hand. And if not, it's early yet. Yeah, oh, we have time. Okay, so we can take questions live here and also on Zoom. And before we do that, Nellie, this was incredible. Absolutely incredible. It was spellbinding. We did a lot of work on this. Nellie did a lot of work. Nellie did all the work. And we want to thank you. And before we take the questions and all that, we at Sisterhood have something for you. It's not ticking.
No.
Not taking, you don't have to worry.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Nellie, this is something.
Thank you so much. Wow.
It's something
Thank
for the
you.
new year.
Merci. And thank you. Shukran.
Nellie,
Shukran.
we hope that for you and your family, we hope the coming year will be a very,
Thank
very
you.
sweet.
Thank
one
you
for
so
and
much.
your family.
Thank
No,
you. Thank
no,
you.
thank you. Wow.
Thank you.
Now, let's take some questions. Okay, Jamie, is anyone on screen asking?
Can't see me. Okay. I was just wondering.
Wait, Paul, can you identify yourself, please?
Sure. All legalists stand up to you. Yeah. When you mention that only 20% of the Jews were citizens, what obstacle, this is prior to 48, what obstacles were being placed on the Jewish population? That was the first question. And the other one, in the riots when they were burning through the streets, how were the Jewish stores identified so that they weren't burning their own Muslim stores? Just,
It's a very good
can
question.
you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question, the first one is
What obstacles were placed
for
so that
citizenship.
Jews were not more represented, were drafted as citizens than the 20%?
Well,
Why weren't they?
well, I have to tell you, my father was born in Egypt. I was born in Egypt. My mother was born in Egypt. I believe her father was born in Egypt. We were never considered Egyptian, even if you are born in the country. So that's an obstacle. All her brothers were born in Egypt. Yes, the grandparents came from outside, but all the born in Egypt were not considered Egyptian because you were not Jewish. You were not Muslim. And what's the second question?
Well, that was the I still question, what obstacles were placed? Why could 20% become citizens and the other 80% couldn't be?
You know, some people maybe vote, you know, there was something going on. I don't know exactly, I cannot say it. Yes.
Then the other question was, in terms of the destruction, the burning in the community.
How did I know?
Where the shops were burned, was it all the shops, or how were they able to identify just the Jewish?
I really can't explain this. Maybe, well, the main stores in downtown Cairo, they knew they were all foreigners. They knew that, the department store. But they burned the big hotels. The big hotels, the Shepherd Hotel, all the big hotels in Cairo, the movie theaters, they were just burning.
Burning, indiscriminate.
Yes, they were just burning.
Right, so
Yeah.
it wasn't a specific target.
No, they burned. And maybe in the neighborhood they walked, who is this? And they said he's Jewish, then they burned it. But they were mobs. They scared. I remember the picture. They walked with the sticks and they wanted to hit them, you know, they didn't care. They were unhappy people. Yeah,
But that was happening almost in every Arab country.
that's what I hear. Yes, yeah. And we knew how to stay under the radar. We did not really, we stayed quiet and we behaved. You know, we were liked by our neighbors, our friends. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You mentioned to me something about Evan.
Yes. So when I was a teenager, I arrived at age 16 in Israel. I was part of a group. It was a social group, not really, I don't know what, Mapai or what, I don't know. But they used to take us around and they showed us all over Israel. It was a nice group to belong to. And one day, Abba Ibn was coming to Beersheba to speak, and I was nominated to present him with a bouquet of flowers. So you know who's Abba Ibn. He was the permanent representative at the United Nations. He spoke with an accent that I adored. I followed all his speeches. And that maybe shows my tendance for South African people.
Maybe it's supposed to be a secret if you don't know.
Where is your wife? Yes. What else? Oh, I forgot to mention. When we were maybe 17, 18, we were out with a group of friends at an evening, social evening, and they said, oh, we're gonna nominate the Queen of the Negev. Every girl get up on the stage. We were just dressed like this. Go, my sister and I, go. We all went up, and my sister was nominated, the Queen of the Negev. She was on the front page of La Isha, which is the famous magazine, women magazine in Israel until now. And she was given 200 pounds, I think, and a gold bracelet. And she wore the top that I still have in my closet. It's in my closet, it's mine. It wasn't hers, she bought my shirt. Yes, yes, I have it still. Yes. These are moments to remember.
Did you know any Egyptian Jews who were there for many more generations?
I can't hear you.
Did you know any Egyptian Jewish people who were there for many more generations than you and your family?
To tell you the truth, I left at age 16. So all I knew was my immediate family and their friends, mostly family. We were close-knit aunts and uncles, and these were our circles. I don't know, but I'm sure there were people there longer, but
Well,
very
actually,
few people had an Egyptian identity, you know, like it's passport, what do you call it? Like citizenship. No, we didn't have anything. We were not French, this and this and.
well, actually, those Jews who had been there for centuries were primarily like the Karaites and others. And Nellie and her family, they all came over from the 1860s on over from the Ottoman Empire and Southern Europe and whatever. And also, by keeping a European passport, it may have been a protection for you. Because, you know, if you remember, we said when everybody was expelled, the Europeans were given 2 weeks. Everybody else go, goodbye. So
You mentioned the Karaite. We had a group of Karaite. You know what the Karaite is? It's another sect of Jews. They mostly lived by themselves. We didn't mingle. And we had an Ashkenazi group in Egypt. They had their own temple. And in fact, my mother's cousin was married to an Ashkenazi man. Oh, we
And that's
started
marriage.
early.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Oh, a question. This lady here, and then on that.
So you said your husband was from another part of Egypt,
He was from Alexandria.
but then how did you meet them?
Ah, that's a good story. He was expelled and he went to France and he couldn't find jobs in France as a physician. The American embassy gave him a Fulbright scholarship to America. He changed his specialty, he became a psychiatrist. However, you need 4 years to be like to finish your residency. But he couldn't stay another year, so he left. He went to Israel, and he said, "Now I'm going to get married in Israel with my parents' benediction." You know, yes. And he asked his sister to introduce him to Jewish girls, and she knew my mother, and he came, and he said, "Okay." Actually, he didn't choose me; he chose my sister. That's the story. My husband came to Israel to get married.
Yes.
And his sister tried to make shidduch, and she said, "We know this family Haber, she has 2 daughters, I'm going to take you there." He came and visited, and when he left, he chose my sister, not Nellie. And my sister, when she knew the age, was a big gap. And she was more attached to my parents, and she said no. And then he continued to come, and at the end, he said, "Okay, I'll take Nellie." And that's what happened. And so we ended up, we had to go to Canada to finish his last year of residency. We stayed 5 years. And then we immigrated to America because I had a brother here and he had a brother. And he decided to come on the map. He said, "I'm going to look here and here." And he said, Great Neck. And why did he choose Great Neck? Because in medical school, he had a student, his father was at the United Nations, which is Live Success. And we came, And we found the house. He found the house. He said, come. I said, no, not once you saw it. I came and I liked it. And the same week we came, we searched for Temple Israel, and it was the Balls who introduced us. Nobody is here. If they are maybe on Zoom.
Did you say, I think you did, this was when the UN was in Lake Success?
United Nations was in Lake Success. So this student who was with him in medical school always spoke about Lake Success and Great Neck. So he knew, he looked on the map, I want to go here, 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 here. When he came here, he liked the house, and we ended up here 50 years. A long time. And 50 years in Temple Israel.
Can I have?
It's Hamsa, like in Arabic. I didn't realize.
We had a question in the back.
Ellie, you didn't mention anything about religious life in Cairo. Kosher.
Yes, religious life, yes. We all kept kosher. Nobody knew about non-kosher. And nobody will associate with you if you're not kosher. So, yes, there was not kosher, but it wasn't in the homes. Maybe later on, people will have a sandwich outside or something, but our homes were strictly kosher. Yes. Yeah. And we had the butcher and the shochet. Yes, this was the Jewish custom. Yes.
Oh,
And we had temples in every neighborhood. Every neighborhood. The main temple in downtown Cairo was beautiful. When we went back, we didn't have a chance to see it because they were constructing it. And that's where all the weddings happened. And I forgot to mention, my uncle, who was well-to-do, when his daughter got married, me and my sister, we were flower girls, not flower girls, bridesmaids. We were young. She traveled in a landau, you know, the carriage with the horse, like Diana, downtown to Temple. That was how you did it. Yes, I remember that. Yes, yes.
There's a question back there.
Yes,
Did you, in school, did you learn to read or write or speak Arabic?
yes. These were French school, and you mentioned how when they changed the standard.
Yes.
We started with French, and then after second grade, maybe they introduced Arabic. At third grade or fourth, they introduced English. But the diplomas were always in French. You could take at the primary school an Arabic national test to become fluent. And my mother wanted me to do it, and I did it. So I had this national exam for the primary school. But after they nationalized, before that, if you passed your French test, you passed a grade. But after they nationalized everything in Egypt, if you didn't pass your French test, your Arabic test, but you've passed your French, you failed. They made it very difficult. Oui, monsieur. Oui.
My question is about, you mentioned that when you went to Alexandria, people were wearing swimsuits and there was music and everything else. Obviously, that reflects a very different Islam.
A very what?
Different approach to Islam.
Yes.
At that time. Was that starting to change? Were you starting to see more restrictions?
In my time, we didn't see that. Because we moved in a European circle. So the Arab didn't mingle with us. The Arab were there to serve. They worked in the restaurant, they worked here and there. They were the high society, like at school when I was, I had 2 or 3 girls that were Muslim. And the parents sent them there because they wanted them to be educated, to be fluent in French, because French was the social language in Egypt. English was the business language. So if you wanted to appear, when you went to the department store, you spoke French to the sales girls. So if you wanted to be of a certain class, you wanted your children to be educated so they can speak French, so they can learn English, so they can work, but the girls didn't work. But French was a social language, and it gave you some status if you were circulating in a certain circle. If you went to the clubs, the country clubs and all this, you mingled with foreigners, Italian, Greek, French. People spoke multiple languages. And there is a joke, I saw it a few years ago. Egyptian people, they published a conversation between two women at the window. In a conversation of 10 sentences, they had 5 languages. Because they moved from one to the other. So you started, 5 languages in one short conversation. Because we pick words from languages and we use it as it suits best in our conversation. And here I use my hands a lot, sorry. Yes,
What were the 5 languages?
I can't hear you.
What were the 5 languages?
Greek, Italian, French, Arabic, English.
You were really well versed, that's very impressive.
My father spoke Italian. My aunt spoke Italian at home. In fact, they used to call, my cousins called my aunt Zia Clementine and Zio Jacques, my father. So my father went to Italian school because he was in Alexandria. I don't know why. But if you had Greek neighbors, my mother spoke some Greek because she became very friendly with the neighbors. And if you had a business and you had to deal with Greek people, you pick up some words. So Arabic, French, English is for business. But French really the social language, yes. Yes.
What was your father's business?
He had a store, a liquor store.
And what did he do when he got to Israel?
No, he had to work. He got a job as manager of workers, you know, like he was managing a group of workers. And my mother used to laugh. He was the best dressed man because he ironed his shirt, the khaki shirt and the khaki pants, and his shoes were shiny because he was a very elegant man. Did you show the pictures?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, when I saw my husband the first time, I liked it because he dressed like my father. Papa was a very elegant man, very, yeah,
Your father sold liquor
yes,
in a Muslim country.
yes,
Was selling of liquor limited to Jews or non-Muslims?
yes.
And who would they sell to?
They bought it. You know, I know that he had Egyptian Arabic men. And when they listen to Kalsoum, you know, the famous singer in Cairo, they will sit and drink cognac or arak. I don't know what they drink, but it was only men. They don't talk about it, but they do it.
Right.
Yes, yes. It's forbidden in the law, yes, but they do drink, yes. It's not very published, but they did.
Were there Muslim sales, shop owners, or limited to people who were not?
I am not familiar. I can't answer. I don't have information about this. Yeah.
Oh, one more question. Oh, 2 more questions.
Yes.
Where did all your acquaintances from your neighborhood move to when they left? Did they all go to Israel? Or
Well,
did they
we
scatter?
were the only Jewish family, so we're the only one who left. We didn't really mingle with people. We were mostly with families, and I had my friends from school. So the Jewish friends left. All my friends that I knew went to Australia, Paris, London, Israel. I ended up with some friends in Israel. So we were scattered around.
So there's not one country that they preferred over others. So that because
What-
of the language they spoke, they didn't go to France.
No, you
or
went.
Greece or Italy.
Well, you went if you had, like my sister-in-law, she had her uncles in Belgium. They were in the Congo Belge and they were they went to Belgium. Other people had a French passport, they settled in France, and maybe it didn't work out, they ended up in Israel. If you had a British passport, my friend ended up in London, and they stayed there. So it depends what was the possibility. If we didn't have any passport, so no country would take us.
Well, how come did you have any passport? I mean, your family was from Greece. and
No,
Turkey.
not from Greece, originally from Turkey, but you don't have a passport. And Spain, I don't know how they fled, whatever. My aunt was able, my uncle's wife, she was able to go back to the consulate, and they helped her daughter's husband, who was in prison and he was very sick. They gave him money and he was able to release him and help them to get them out. And my aunt, my uncle's wife, before they left, she went to the consular, Spanish. She said, here's my money. I'll give you half of it if you transfer it for me to Spain. She wasn't successful.
Did you get anything?
I don't know what they did. My uncle was already having a Swiss account, and she had a diamond that was big, and she told my mother, I'll swallow it before I can leave it. And I don't know what she did, but she was capable of doing. A lot of Jews, when they left, they used their bracelets and they made kach. I was going to bring this. It's like a circle, salty one, and they baked the gold bracelet into a kach, and they took it as cookies. My mother sewed her diamond in the seam of a pajama and nightgown, you know, the double seam you make? And yeah, and she put fake stones in her earrings and her rings. When we came back to Israel, she thought she lost one of the diamond, and she said, okay. And one day she wanted to give the pajamas because nobody was wearing pajamas. And she said, no, it's a good fabric. She started to tear the seam, and she hit click on the balatat, and she found it. Yeah, everybody tried to smuggle and get something out. I can't hear.
Do you consider yourself an Egyptian?
Yeah, I was born in Egypt, but I don't consider myself Egyptian because I am not a true Egyptian. If you want to be an Egyptian, yes, by birth, I lived up to the age of 16. I was there. I have some customs, but we are not the true Egyptian like the Muslim and the Christian. We had our Jewish, European customs that put us a little bit aside. I think the Persian are more, Mahin, the Persian you feel more.
Yeah, that's the reason I asked that question, is that the Persian Jewish community have been in Iran much longer. And we have taken some of the customs, we have taken a lot more, even though we maintain
Jewish.
traditions, language,
Yes, yes.
and all that.
Yeah.
But that's why I wanted to know if there were Egyptian Jews who might have been there for many generations, like Iranian Jews. But
Maybe,
they
but
were not.
I don't have the information to say, really, I know it. I don't know. I'm sure there were some that were there longer.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Going once? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. Thank you very much.
Toby,
Ma'am.
thank you so much.
No, Nellie.
You were such a, Nelly, you were such a good, Nelly.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hi, Susan. Okay. Welcome to Binyan. So we are about to begin. We have about 5 people in the chapel and a group on Zoom. And so let's begin on page 1 with Ashrei beginning Mincha. Ashrei Oshrei Vetecha, Odi Hallelujah Sala, Ashrei Am Shekachalo, Ashrei Am Shalom Elav, Tila Let the Bira Mimcha Le'olam Melech.